Hi everyone, this is Marianne and welcome to my channel. I hope you're enjoying this series so far of the 12 Pens of Christmas from everythingcalligraphy.com. We are already on the second day of the year 2018, but still technically we are on the 9th day of Christmas. So we are going to look at another pen today, which is pen number 9 of the 12 Pens of Christmas from everythingcalligraphy.com. Today we have the Platinum Plaisir, and this is a very simple pen. It's not very expensive, and this is how it comes. It comes in a simple plastic packaging that is taped at one end. It does come in different colors, and I will place a link down below to the listing in the Everything Calligraphy website, but this is the pen that I have right now. It is sort of like a matte gold color. It definitely has that metallic finish, but it is not made of metal. The pen body and cap are made of plastic, but it just has that metallic finish to it to make it look a little bit more, fancier than a plastic pen. And over that matte gold metallic finish is a very glossy coating. It is not very easy to capture it on camera, and I actually tried to um, play around with the lights in my filming area to capture the finish, but I couldn't. It did translate well to camera, but if you can imagine a matte gold metallic finish with a very glossy clear coating on top of everything. That's really the best way I can describe it. Now the clip has this label attached to it. It has the word platinum on it, and I tried taking off the label from the clip, but I couldn't, and I didn't really want to destroy the label, so I left it there because it's not really necessary to take off that label to test the pen. The cap of the pen pops off, and the grip is made of a transparent plastic, and so we can clearly see the feed inside the section, and it is made of a gray colored material. If you like exposed feeds, then you will like this pen because I think feeds are very fascinating to look at, especially when you have been using them for a while and they start filling with ink and it looks pretty messy. But that's really the magic of it. Fountain pens are very messy on the inside because there's ink all over the place, but I think that if you are a fountain pen collector or simply an appreciator of fountain pens and you know the workings of a fountain pen, then you can appreciate how a feed works, and then you can also appreciate how a feed looks when it's working. Here's a much closer video of the feed, and I'm holding it at an angle so that you can see the gray fins on there. We haven't filled the pen with any ink yet, so this part is very, very clean. The cap has a relatively simple design. The clip has a gold color, but the trim on the cap is silver. And it doesn't really look as if the trim on the cap and the clip match. When capped, the pen measures about 14.5 centimeters. When the pen is uncapped, it is about 12 centimeters long. And when the cap is posted, the pen becomes 15.5 centimeters long. The barrel screws away from the section to reveal the area where we usually put either a converter or an ink cartridge, but this pen did not come with a converter. Instead, it came with an ink cartridge, and it is a platinum ink cartridge. It even has the label still on there that is partly not stuck down, although I think that it's supposed to be stuck down. Installing an ink cartridge into a pen is pretty much the same as installing a converter into a pen. We simply have to make sure that the cartridge or the converter is seated into the collar of the section. I just noticed that this particular ink cartridge is sealed off with that silver ball at the end, and I'm thinking that it also has another function. Once the ink cartridge has been pushed into the feed of the pen, that silver ball goes inside the cartridge and acts as an agitator to keep the ink moving inside that reservoir. And once more, we have to deal with something that I really don't like with ink cartridges, which is that we have to give the pen a little bit more work before the ink actually starts flowing out of the nib, because air is still inside the feed and the ink has not traveled yet from the cartridge all the way through the feed and into the nib and to the tip of the nib. So that's really a very annoying extra step to take, which is one of the reasons why I do not like using ink cartridges. So after a little bit of shaking, the ink started to come out and I am able to start writing with the pen finally. And I started writing the usual things: the name of the pen, the nib that it comes in, and the name of the ink that I'm using it with. I'm assuming that this is a platinum ink cartridge, and this looks to me like the color black. You never know anymore with fountain pen inks, because now there are many different shades of black and there are many different shades of gray. Once I actually started to get the ink flowing and once I have started to write with this pen, I thought that the pen wrote reasonably smooth. It did not skip, and the lines that I was able to write with it seemed consistent enough. This is really just a simple pen. There is nothing special about it, and it is certainly not an expensive pen at all. And I can appreciate the fact that it wrote perfectly out of the box, and if it did not write at once after I put the ink cartridge in, it's only because all pens act that way right after an ink cartridge is installed. So this pen really has no pretensions at all. It has no delusions of grandeur, and I certainly did not expect any grand things from it. But I have to say that this pen really felt like I was writing with a ballpoint pen. It felt like a ballpoint pen in my hands, and that see-through transparent plastic feed added to the ballpoint feel to the pen. It felt balanced enough in my hand. It didn't topple over when I let go of the grip, and even when the pen was capped, it only lifted from my fingers a little bit because the cap is kind of big and it has that metal trim on it, which adds to the weight of the cap a little bit. But when I tried writing with a pen using its own weight, with some lines, it didn't really write. And I think it is because the pen is way too light. So I just kept trying that. And as you can see, it did not really perform very well with this particular test. But then again, I started making excuses for the pen, like it is my tendency to do. I kept thinking, well, I didn't soak this pen. Maybe it still has manufacturing oils on it. Or maybe I really just need to write a little bit more with this pen. As you can probably conclude by now if you have watched this series long enough, I usually give fountain pens a lot of chances. I did the usual figures of 8, and then I did the short vertical lines, and then the short horizontal lines, and then I did one short line of fast writing, and then another short line of slow writing, and then a sample of print writing. Neither of the three showed any difference. And then I tried writing figures of 8 with a little bit of flex to the pen, and I was able to make my handwriting look a little bit more fancy. As you can see, the downstrokes to the figures of 8 looks a little bit darker, but this is not a flex pen, and to be very honest, the nib feels very rigid to write with. It really writes like a nail. And I even tried to write with a very light touch and then a slightly heavier touch, but really there wasn't much difference to how the shading looks on the paper when I was done. But then when I tried to write with a pen using its own weight alone, I had better results this time. And I don't really know why. Maybe one of the factors that contributed to better writing is the fact that I tried to flex the pen a little bit, even though it's not really a flex pen. I think it sort of primed the nib a little bit and allowed ink to flow more freely through the tip of the nib. The pen certainly did not skip. And of course, when we are writing with any fountain pen, we don't really hold the pen this way. We actually hold it properly so that when the pen needs a little bit more pressure, if the stroke of the handwriting needs a little bit more pressure, we can actually press down as needed. However, this particular step is just a little test that we can do to figure out how well a nib is made, but it's absolutely not necessary at all. But it can give you a pretty good clue early on how the pen is probably going to perform. And like I said before in this video, there is nothing special about this pen. It writes okay, it is smooth, it does not skip, it is consistent enough. It shows reasonable shading, although it is a little bit dry, but really there are some pens that you don't really expect much from, and this pen is one of those. For the price, I am not going to complain. It is certainly a very good starter pen, and if you just need a pen that you can keep around for every day, like keep in your bag, then this pen would be it. It's a very ordinary pen, but if you want to make it feel more special, I would suggest using a very unusual ink with it. There are usually more ink color selections available for bottled inks compared with ink cartridges. So I suggest that you simply buy a converter for this pen and use bottled ink with it in an unusual color like a very bright pink, just to make it a little bit more special and just to lessen the ballpoint feel to this pen. As you can see, I twirled it around in my hand because it really feels like a ballpoint pen, you guys. And that is usually what we do with ballpoint pens. We play with them in our hands. We don't usually twirl fountain pens in our hands because if we accidentally drop it nib down, then that is going to absolutely ruin the pen for us. So we don't twirl fountain pens in our hands, but we twirl ballpoint pens in our hands. So really that's what I was doing. And that is what I think of the Platinum Plaisir. This is pen number 9 of the 12 Pens of Christmas from everythingcalligraphy.com. Now, Everything Calligraphy delivers to all locations in the Philippines via private courier, and they also deliver internationally. I have a video review of the everythingcalligraphy.com online store on my channel, and I will link it down below. Be sure to catch me again tomorrow for my review of pen number 9 of the 12 Pens of Christmas from everythingcalligraphy.com. Thanks for watching and Happy New Year!